All right, ladies, happy Tuesday. All right, Courtney here. I'm the admin of the group, and I'm here for our weekly live stream. So excited to chat with you today about this because it's been a while. This is something that comes up in our group quite a bit, but it's been probably a couple months since we've talked about cravings. So cravings, ladies, this is something that we all deal with from time to time. But here's the thing, in order to conquer these cravings, okay, we need to get to the root of them. We need to discover what exactly is driving these cravings so that way we can take a specific plan of action, okay, in order to get these cravings under control. So what I want to let you guys know is that here's what I usually see women do. They try to use willpower to get past these cravings, but really what we need to do is stop being dieters and we need to start being a detective, right? Like I always say, ladies, weight loss is problem solving. So what we need to do, instead of depending on willpower, which never works anyway, right? It might work for a while, but it's kind of like a muscle. Willpower is going to tire out, right? It's not something that we can depend on in order to overcome those cravings. But what we need to do, we need to get to the root of what's causing them. So that's why we're here today. There is a lot of different ways that cravings are triggered. So we need to get to the root of what is causing them so we can take action, okay? So ladies, if you have any questions today, whether you're live or watching the replay, make sure you pop into the comments and let me know what your questions are. You can also direct message me, okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about is kind of like an umbrella here, but we're going to talk about quality of nutrition. So this is something I struggled with in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s. I ate a lot of fast food. So I had the standard American diet. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I pretty much was raised on processed foods and fast food as well. So that being said, I grew up and I didn't really have really good eating habits. So what happened was I started gaining weight pretty quickly once I became inactive after high school. I took a desk job for a while and then guess what? I gained a good 20, 25 pounds pretty quickly because I wasn't active, and then also I was just making poor choices. I was doing a lot of fast food, soda, things like that, right? Well, here's the thing that is kind of one of those things. Some people think it's a real thing, some people don't. But I highly believe that sugar is addictive. Sugar can absolutely be addictive, and here is why. So we have neurotransmitters, okay? Dopamine. So dopamine can actually be triggered by a lot of different things. Cocaine, right? Any kind of addictive substance. Fast food is one of them, things like sex, right? So all of these things trigger the release of dopamine. So whenever dopamine is released, then we experience pleasure, okay? And then whenever we experience that, of course, we want it again and again and again and again. So my theory is that whenever we have a diet that's rich in excess sugar, starch, and fat, that can drive us to lead to more poor food choices because, right, we want that same experience. We love the way it feels whenever we have sugar, right, in our bloodstream. So that being said, this can keep us in this dangerous cycle, right, of constantly eating fast food, processed foods, foods with a lot of added sugars, right, refined carbohydrates. Those are the foods that can lead to things like fat storage, right? So that being said, if our diet is devoid of things like fiber, water, and protein, then it can make it to where cravings can keep coming and coming and coming. And not only that, the other problem is that these foods just aren't really nutritionally sound. So think about how much more full you feel off of like just a salad with chicken. So say you go to a fast food restaurant, right? So today you're going to switch it up. You know, I'm going to go ahead and do the grilled chicken salad, right? And I'm going to get the dressing on the side, right? Extra veggies, all of that good stuff. Think about how much more full you're going to feel off something like that, right? That's going to be higher protein, much more satisfying than something like a Big Mac and fries, right? That doesn't have a lot of nutrition value in it, right? Does that make sense? So whenever we're devoid of things like fiber, protein, and water, guess what? We're not going to feel full for very long, right? And so that can trigger more eating. So we need to understand that cravings can trigger overeating. So it can be a really big problem when we're trying to lose weight whenever we are addicted to sugar, right? Because it just leaves us reaching for more and more sugar, right? So that's really the main thing. And here's the thing that I want to talk about real quick. And we're just going to go ahead and go into environment, okay? So this is another thing that can trigger cravings. So ladies, we're here live talking about cravings. So we just talked about quality of nutrition, right? If we're eating a standard American diet with lots of processed foods, things that don't have a lot of nutritional value, then that can actually lead to more cravings, right? And then on top of everything, that release of dopamine can leave us reaching for more sugar. And that's why a lot of times we're in the cycle of eating the standard American diet. We're dealing with a lot of cravings, and then we're also dealing with overeating. But here's one thing, ladies, our environment can really trigger the way we eat. So think about the people you're around, okay? So I think about like my first marriage. I was married to someone who was a smoker, right? He didn't eat a lot of good, healthy foods. That relationship didn't work out. But yeah, seriously, ladies, like, people and things in your environment. This is why I always tell ladies, hey, if there's a certain food, like for me, it was ice cream. That was one thing I had to get out of my house. So when I was going through my divorce, guess what? Guess what I started doing? I was starting to stress eat again, and it was always the ice cream for me. So what happened was I ended up having to get it out of my house because, ladies, if you keep it in your house, you're going to be tempted to eat it, okay? And I'm not saying never have fun foods, but if this is something that you're really struggling with, if you're someone who's sitting down after a hard day and you're reaching for that ice cream every single night, then it's going to be really difficult to get to your weight loss goals, right? So that's why it's important. Get it out of your house, okay? For me, what helps me from feeling deprived is, okay, not all the time, but I usually have it under control nowadays, once I got it out of my house, right? Now what I do, if I really, really want ice cream, we're going to go out and we're going to get a scoop of ice cream, right? So I take my family out, maybe about once a month. We all love ice cream. So, we go out, we have a scoop, and then we come home, and that's the end of story, right? Until the next month. So if there's a certain food that you feel is triggering your cravings, it's probably a good idea to just get it out of the house, okay? And I know a lot of you guys have kids, okay? And I totally understand. But remember, you're the parent and you're in control, all right? You can control that environment, okay? You can make healthier choices for your kids as well. And if you really want something, you guys can go out and grab a sweet treat, right? And that also trains yourself and your kids like, hey, you know what? This is a sometimes food. It's not a good or bad food, right? But we're not going to keep it in the house because if it triggers us to overeat it, then it's not really a healthy food, right? So we need to make sure that we are keeping control of our environment. Another thing, so maybe not so much in the times of COVID, but there's situations like, say you go out with a friend, right? And you always feel swayed because you want to order the salad, but she orders first and she always orders the cheeseburger, right? And the fries, right? And then you kind of feel like, well, if I order the salad, you know what I mean? So you kind of get in that weird, awkward situation where you feel like you have to match her, right? Well, first of all, you don't have to, right? You don't have to. And second of all, you need to kind of come up with what you're going to say when this situation comes up. Or probably the best approach to do this is think of something else you can do with this friend that doesn't involve eating, okay? Because if you feel like you have a friend maybe who eggs you on to order another drink, like, come on, just one more drink before we go. Or, you know what? I bet you anything you've eaten perfect all week. You can go ahead and order the cheeseburger, right? So if you're in a situation like that, maybe it's time that you say, hey, you know what? Why don't we meet for a cup of coffee instead? Or maybe we meet for a walk, right? So there's all sorts of things that you can do to your environment in order to make it a healthier environment so that way you make good decisions. Maybe it's a fast food restaurant on your way home from work. Could you take a different route in order to get that out of your mind? What about the candy drawer at work, right? So if that's an issue, maybe you come up with your own sweet treat. Like for me, I love doing semi-frozen fruit with a little bit of Greek yogurt, maybe some chopped nuts on top. So think of some things that is going to satisfy your sweet tooth, and be prepared for those times when you're in an environment where you can't really control it, right? So think of some things that are in your control in order to let that craving. You guys are watching the replay, make sure that you pop those in as well. So we're talking about cravings, something we all deal with. We talked about quality of nutrition, why it's so important to get water, protein, and fiber. Make that the base of your diet, ladies. I had a post that came out yesterday that shows some of the foods I eat, guys. Love it. So if you guys have not downloaded my free 5-day metabolic reset meal plan, make sure that you do that. I'm actually in the process of doing some more free resources for you guys. So I'm not going to have that up for long. So make sure that you download that by going to that post. And I might even put the link in the comments when I'm done here so you can find it easy. But that'll give you some good ideas. And then we also talked about environment. Okay, so that's really important too, to make sure that we are having a good environment where we're not being triggered by those cravings. Hormones, super important, okay? So hormones and emotions are next. We're going to talk first about hormones. Why does this matter? Because ladies, if our hormones are out of balance, guess what the symptoms are, okay? Weight gain, especially around the belly, weight loss resistance, increased hunger and cravings, okay? So we're not going to go into all of the hormones. There's a lot that can be affected. And that can trigger cravings. So what I am going to talk about, let's talk about insulin resistance. So this is really common. So just real quick, insulin resistance, what is it? Insulin is created in the pancreas. It's a hormone, okay? And what it does, it helps you take glucose from food, which is aka sugar or carbohydrate, and it uses it for fuel, okay? So one of the body's mechanisms is to regulate insulin. So in a normal body, whenever you eat insulin, your body is like, okay, great, we have some food. Now we can use it for energy, right? But what happens is when we're insulin resistant, and this can usually come from eating a diet rich in excess starch, sugar, and fat, right? It can be hereditary. It could also be caused by overeating. So what happens is over time, once insulin resistance gets bad, what happens is our body doesn't register that we actually have glucose, right, from our food. So our body doesn't recognize those signals, and what happens is our pancreas start to produce more insulin, right? So we're just not being receptive to those signals, and that's exactly what hormones do, right? They're little mailmen inside our body that communicate with other hormones, right? And basically they regulate everything, including, guess what? Hunger, metabolism, all that good stuff. So whenever we're insulin resistant, and I might add, this is really common in people that have low thyroid and or leptin resistance, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But really important that we understand that whenever we're insulin resistant, guess what one of the biggest side effects is cravings, increased cravings, which lead to increased eating, right? Overeating, which can lead to increased fat storage, right? So that's why hormones can really play a big role. Same thing with our hunger hormones. So we have leptin. This is the hormone that tells us that we've had enough food. Well, guess what? Whenever we're doing things like eating the standard American diet, we're overeating those foods, we can become resistant to leptin. Leptin lets us know that our body's had enough. So that's why it's really hard when we're overweight, right? It doesn't feel like you get enough food. So this might feel like you just ate a meal and an hour later you're hungry, right? So that's one thing that it can do. We start being less sensitive to those fullness cues, right? Our body doesn't understand that we've had enough to eat, and then guess what? We end up overeating. And what makes it worse is that with leptin resistance, it can actually get worse and worse and worse. We don't hear those the fullness signals. So what happens is we end up overeating, and guess what? The more fat we have on our bodies, the more leptin resistant we get. So that's why it feels like you're out of control with your eating whenever you're overweight, okay, if that makes sense. Same thing with ghrelin. So ghrelin is the hormone that triggers our hunger, right? So that's another one that we need to watch out for. So ladies, really important that this is why I'm always telling you guys that weight loss is not just calories in, calories out. It's not as simple as eating less and exercising more. We need to have hormonal balance, not imbalance. We need to have hormonal balance. So that way everything is working properly, right? Because going back to ghrelin, right? If we are hungry all the time, then guess what? Those cravings are going to be very much present, and that can lead to overeating. So really important to have those hormones under control, okay? So this is something I do a lot in my online coaching programs. I have the 28-day metabolic reset, which is a 6-week program, a great starter, and that also leads into my 3-month program. So guys, this is the time of year. I know you're thinking about working with a coach, working with a trainer. So get in my schedule now. Make sure that you're booking your free discovery call with me, okay? Because I'm going to be really busy here in about 3 weeks with the turn of the new year. So make sure that you get in my schedule now. You guys can book your free discovery call with me by direct messaging me, okay? Or you can even comment below and I'll get in touch with you. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the last one. I saved the best for last. I hope you guys pop back on here live with me because you do not want to miss this. Emotions, ladies. So this is really a big one, all right? So emotional eating is not just, the curtain is drawn, we have Ben and Jerry's, we're crying into our ice cream. This is a scenario I always think of when I think of emotional eating, but we need to understand that guess what? It's not just sadness that can cause emotional eating. It can be from other emotions. I don't know about you, but I know after a stressful day, I just want to sit on the couch. I want to open up a can of Pringles, or I want to open up Ben and Jerry, and I just want to forget about the day, okay? Because you know what? Eating does. It kind of calms you. It doesn't really calm you. You just think it's calming you, right? So whether it is anger, I'm someone who is an angry eater. I've seen it myself. I've seen it. It can be from stress. It can be from boredom, okay? So it's not just about being sad, okay? It can really be any emotion that drives you to eat. So this might look like plopping on the couch after your boss yelled at you, or going through the drive-thru after you and your spouse had a big fight, right? All of these things can trigger the urge to eat, okay? So if you feel the urge, more than likely it's emotional eating, okay? And what I want to say here, there's really no fix, okay? You have to deal with this head on. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. All my friends are like, Courtney, what's the best diet? What's really going to work? And here is the answer. You have to get your eating under control, because if you're overeating, okay, if you're overeating once, twice, 3 times a week, you're going to have a really hard time with weight loss, okay? So we need to get to the root. What's causing these cravings, right? Is it my emotions, right? When am I finding myself reaching for food? Is it when, I get in a fight with my loved one? Is it when I feel overwhelmed? Is it when, this is my favorite, and I do this with drinking, by the way. And by the way, ladies, just because you do with alcohol is still emotional eating or emotional drinking, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not going to lie, with the whole COVID thing, there's been some nights I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to have another drink because this is just crap right now. So whether you eat ice cream, whether you drink wine like I do, whatever the case is, it's all about getting to the root of why you're reaching for food, okay? What kind of void are you trying to fill? We need to ask ourselves these questions. And we also need to be mindful about what how we're eating, right? It's not just about what you're eating, it's also how you're eating. So, are you asking yourself before you start reaching for food, or before you pull up into the drive-in, are you asking yourself, am I really hungry? Also, are you doing things to distract yourself? So this was a big one. So I used to be a smoker. I smoked for 10 years of my life. I finally quit. It took me 2 times, I believe. The first time I quit for like over a year, and then it was really stupid, but I ended up smoking again for like 6 months. But anyway, one thing that helped me was having a plan of action with my cravings, okay? This actually helped me with binge eating too. So basically, whenever that urge to eat pops up, stop yourself, ask yourself, am I hungry, right? Am I eating out of emotion, or is this true hunger, right? Is it actually physical hunger? Once you answer that question, if the answer is no, then stop yourself. And I want you to arm yourself with some things that you can do in order to distract yourself. Just like any other craving, it will pass, but you got to give it some time, and you got to do something that's going to keep you busy. Preferably something with like your hands, right? Or with your mouth. Maybe you call a friend, okay? Who's going to keep you grounded. For me, I used to call my mom, and I would chat with her because she wanted me to be successful with everything I was doing. So she was someone who would always calm me down. Knitting, that was another thing I went to. So any kind of artwork, right? Any kind of busy work. So laundry, anything like that. Whatever feels, if it feels calming, even better, okay? So arm yourself with like 3 activities that you can do whenever those cravings hit, whenever it's an emotional thing. That's gonna help you keep busy, right? Keep your mind off of it, help you pass the time, because I promise you that urge to eat will go away, okay? Don't just go off of willpower, okay? Because it doesn't work. Willpower is something that you can train, absolutely, but just like everyone else, and I'm just like you ladies, we only have so much willpower, okay? So quick recap, and then we're gonna call it a great day. All right, first one, quality nutrition, guys. If you're eating the standard American diet, start making small changes to your diet, okay? Get more water, protein, and fiber in. Yesterday, I was telling you guys, hey, if you eat things like soup, salads, scrambled eggs, and protein shakes, guys, that's pretty much what it is, right? Meat and veggies, okay? Things that are filled with water, filling fiber and protein. Those things are going to keep you full. They're going to help keep cravings under control. And not only that, remember, when we're eating a lot of excess starch, sugar, and fat, that can trigger dopamine, okay? Your brain wants that feel-good feeling, okay? And guess what? Sugar can be addictive. That's why a lot of times we find ourselves in this mess, and by the time you know it, you're 20 pounds overweight, right? And you can't keep your eating under control. You feel completely out of control. Start making small changes to your diet, okay? Plan ahead, guys. Make sure you have snacks on hand so that way you're not just going through the drive-thru. All right, we also talked about our environment, right? I gave you some quick fixes of how you can do things like get things out of your house if it's a problem, okay? How you can clean up your environment. Again, you might not be able to control everything, but there is some things that you can control, okay? We talked about hormones, okay? How important it is to have hormonal balance, okay? So make sure that we're not just making changes to our diet. We're doing things like mindful eating, we're sleeping enough, right? So we can keep hormones under control. We talked about how insulin resistance, leptin resistance, all of those things can trigger cravings and hunger, right? Because especially with leptin, okay, that's a big thing. So if you're insulin resistant, you're probably leptin resistant as well. If we're not hearing those fullness cues and we keep eating, then that's overeating. And guess what? When we're overeating, then we're in a calorie surplus. That can lead to increased fat storage, okay? So we need to have those hormones under control. Super important. And then lastly, emotions, okay? This is a tough one. I've been there. I'm still there sometimes. I know a lot of you ladies have been struggling with this. I actually have an emotional eating course, so if you guys are interested in that, shoot me a DM, okay? But guys, we have to get in the habit of asking ourselves, am I hungry, okay? Have I had enough to eat? Doing things like distracting yourself until that craving passes, okay? There's really no way out of it besides facing those emotions head on, okay? Finding other ways dealing with them. Maybe you need to do something like I did counseling for a few years. When I was going through my divorce, I had a lot of emotions. I was finding myself getting back into, eating a pint of ice cream every night. So I hired an online I guess, a counselor. Yeah, she was a counselor, and I worked with her for 2 years. Super affordable, and it was worth every single penny, guys. So do whatever you need to do, whether that's journaling, meditation, talking with a friend, okay? And don't forget to have some strategies in place for when those cravings hit, so that way you can stay busy until that craving passes, which it will, okay? All right, ladies, good chat today. If you guys are watching the replay, make sure you pop any questions you might have. I love talking about cravings and what we can do in order to get them more under control, so that way we can reach our body composition goals. All right, ladies, thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and stay on the lookout for more posts about conquering and understanding cravings. All right, have a great Tuesday. I'll see you next time. Bye.